Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Welcome to PrimeSpan Podcast, where we translate healthy longevity research, ideas, and innovation into practical conversation for second half of life. There is a moment many people experience in the second half of life. Something that once felt familiar suddenly feels different. It may be a meal we no longer digest the same way, an activity that we require more recovery, or a glass of wine that begins affecting our sleep, energy, balance, or the way we feel the next morning. These changes can be frustrating because they remind us that the body is not static, but they can also be valuable signals, an invitation to pay closer attention, ask better questions, and reconsider habits that may no longer serve us in the same way. Today's guest, Paul Lagerstedt, experienced one of those moments. Paul says he was not a heavy drinker, but over time, he noticed that certain drinks no longer sat well with him. Instead of brushing it off, he became curious. Paul grew up in the foothills of Washington's Cascade Mountain and worked as a diesel mechanic in his family's trucking company. He was trained to notice when a system behaved differently, identify possible causes, test solutions, and respect details. So in 2021, as he and his wife Sarah relocated to New York, the same mindset shaped his investigation into what it presents in alcohol beverage beyond ethanol. So this brought him to ALKAA. So this conversation is not an endorsement of drinking or recommendation that every listeners will follow drinking. We are using Paul's work as a real-world case study. ALKAA treats the drink, not the body. It does not meaningfully remove ethanol, and it does not remove the broader health and safety risk associated with alcohol. Welcome to PrimeSpan Podcast. Thank you for being here. And of course, we have Ray, our co-pilot here in this podcast all the time. Paul, first question. Before there was a company, a patent, a product, there was a personal moment here. Take us back to when you first realized that certain drinks no longer felt the same way in your body. What was happening there?
Sure, man. It's a funny story, but it's a long story too, because for years, Adam, I just didn't feel good after I had some alcohol. And when I say some, it was very moderate, maybe a beer on a Saturday afternoon after mowing the lawn, a dram of scotch with some friends on a Sunday evening, or a glass of wine with some friends, usually on the weekend. After every drink, I just would feel foggy or awful. And sometimes it would just plain hurt, especially the red wine. It would just make my headache start almost immediately. Come to find out what they call a cocktail headache, to where I would just avoid wine really just because I knew it would not make me feel good. So it was funny, these different alcohols would make me feel this pain differently. A wine would give me a headache, a whiskey would give me a heartburn and make my body ache, and a beer would just make me super, super tired. I felt like I needed to take a nap. And this was just something that I just lived with, and my friends and family, and I think it was just part of the what I call now the alcohol tax. You want to enjoy alcohol and feel good, you're going to pay for it. And after a while, as I got older, there was a time you mentioned it in the intro. We were driving cross country, Sarah and I. We had stopped in Chicago. I had a glass of wine with dinner, and I shouldn't have done it, because I felt it come on right away. And it honestly, it made me mad. I was really irritated because I was like, I feel like I'm broken. I would, like you said, Adam, you would take charcoal pills before you drank, just because anything to help. I didn't even know what I was doing, right? But charcoal pills, ibuprofen, flyby, the pre-drink biotics, the pre-drink potions, the post-drink. There were all these things for my body, and most of the time they just didn't work.
Mhm.
It was kind of what they call a crapshoot. You're like, I'm going to do it, but the charcoal would, I mean, we're on a podcast, but it would mess up my stomach. The next day, the ibuprofen I'm drinking or taking right before I'm drinking alcohol, which isn't good for your liver. Anything to stave off the headache, the poor sleep, and then the next day hangover, what we call general malaise feeling, because hangover just has that connotation of, oh, you drank too much, Paul drank too much, or Adam or Ray drank too much. But a hangover is just feeling of fog, headache, awfulness. It was all affecting me, and enough was enough.
Typical person would let it go, but you took it in a different route. You became more curious instead of simply just missing the
Yeah.
reaction, and you are trying to push it through.
What? How?
How?
So after that dinner that we had and that glass of wine, the next morning, I looked over at Sarah's. We were heading east towards New York. I was like, I'm gonna solve this problem. And it was just I said, because I was irritated, but I'm also genuinely curious of why can't I enjoy a glass of wine and just wake up feeling good or go to bed feeling good? So with that, this was 2021, October-ish, 2021. We were in COVID, right? Everything with the world was just in a weird spot. We landed in New York. We were at an Airbnb, a couple Airbnbs for a month or two before we moved into our house. And I just started doing deep dives. And Adam, this was old-fashioned Google. This was pre-AI, baby. There was no chat GPT, there was no nothing. It was just Google. And
Yeah.
so I started just researching, trying to solve a problem, trying to fix this. Again, something that in my mind, years as a diesel mechanic were kicking in of, look, there's got to be a problem. And if there's a problem, there's got to be a solution. Basically, how can we fix this? And that deep dive took me into a bunch of just research studies that have been done for decades. There are hundreds of research studies on why alcohol does what it does. And so I'm learning that my assumptions were it's the ethanol or it's dehydration. Those were the two. I think if you went on the sidewalk and you were going to poll people and say, hey, why do you get a hangover? Or why do you feel awful? Why do you get a headache? They're like, oh, it's the ethanol or it's dehydration. So, but both of those were at forefront in my mind. But the more I started digging, the more I found that there are 7 byproducts of fermentation. And these are natural byproducts, Adam. That it's nothing that anybody's adding. Nobody's trying to do this on purpose. It's just when there's yeast and sugar, right, and it creates alcohol, there's these byproducts, and it's sulfites. And some of them are just naturally occurring just from the grapes. Tannins, histamines, acetaldehyde, quercetin, methylamine. And these are all things that I didn't even know how to pronounce them.
Yeah, I can imagine. And
Yeah.
Paul, when you think about it, all the things that you're talking about exist in typical food that we
Yes,
eat.
exactly. Cheese,
Tomato sauce, those will
soy
have
sauce, Worcestershire sauce,
yes.
dried apricots. You've got histamines, tannins, sulfites everywhere in really high concentration. So I'm like, well, what? So I think I could probably eat a whole bag of dried apricots from Trader Joe's and not come away with a headache, right? So why are these things happening? And what is a histamine? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I can read and I can understand what I'm reading, and I'm a mechanic, so I'm used to fixing things. So after I figured out that these things were in different rates depending on the type of alcohol, then it was okay. I'm looking at things I took the ethanol out. And by out, I'm not concerned about the ethanol. I'm going to focus on these guys here because when I look at the studies that have been done on histamine and alcohol and the severity of hangovers, that was fascinating to me. I'm like, what the heck? What? I thought it was dehydration or ethanol. Not saying that it's not, but my kind of line in the sand is it's not the ethanol and it's not dehydration. Guys, if it was dehydration, we would have solved this 6,000 years ago when the Egyptians created beer. They would have been like, oh, you're going to have beer? We need to have some water with it so we don't get a hangover the next day. Let's be real, right? If drinking a ton of water while you drink alcohol helped, we would do it and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
It's so true.
It's true. And I'm not going to say it's not the ethanol because Sarah and I and ALKAA preach moderation. ALKAA is not for alcoholics.
Mhm.
If you drink a lot of alcohol, it will hurt your body and it could, right? There is a point where too much is too much.
Correct.
But, and again, I'm being kind of deep dive here. The toxic dose for ethanol is about a 750 milliliter. So a bottle of wine, like that much volume, at a pretty quick dose, that would kill you. That's a lot of ethanol, right? The toxic dose for acetaldehyde is about a half of a grain of rice.
It's very potent.
It's very potent and is very small. So I'm finding these things out of, oh man, I think we really need to look at tannins, acetaldehydes, sulfites, congeners. So once I started learning, I basically got these 7 items down. And then I'm like, what is it? What is a histamine? What does it look like? Kind of the mechanic part of me of if your car doesn't start, Adam, what could it be? It could be a battery. It could be a bad starter. It could be a loose wire. It could be a bad ignition switch. It could be you didn't have the car in park. There's all these things of like, why isn't my car starting? And there's these different solutions. So that's kind of the mechanic of me is, hey, I don't think it's the ethanol. Let's shelve that. It's not dehydration. What are these other 7 and how can we attract them without destroying the taste and without extracting the ethanol? Because I drink because it makes me feel happy. And I think you're the same and Ray's the same in our fam. Like in moderation, alcohol makes you feel happy. It makes your heart glad. So I didn't want to mess with that part of it. I didn't want to do the non-alcoholic, take the alcohol out. So with that, again, deep dive, a histamine, a congener, a sulfite, they have either a negative charge or a positive charge. The recipe that I started putting together and ordering stuff from all over the world, I'm on Alibaba and I'm on Google Shop and I'm like, hey, I think this is gonna work. And I'm putting stuff in a tea bag and I'm putting it in and then I'm testing it on myself and it didn't work right away. And the testing was like, I would know, especially with wine, within minutes, really, that this recipe isn't the one. And I would just pay for it the next day. I let the headache clear, let the fog clear. And I'm still trying to do my day job at the same time. And after a while, I was getting it. The pain associated with drinking was becoming less and less. Then at that point, I was like, is it placebo? Is it just because I'm super excited about this recipe and this journey that we've been on? So I found a testing lab that could test the before and after levels of these toxins. And after we came up with a recipe that I knew was working, we found a lab, sent it off to the lab, had our before and afters, and it was pretty shocking that we didn't, certain constituents that we do eliminate 100% of, but most of what ALKAA does is it just has a heavy reduction of these trace compounds that are known to cause 40 plus alcohol intolerance symptoms, from flushing, nausea, headaches, congestion, fatigue, body aches, right? That the list goes on. And I think most everybody, 75% of people that drink report some sort of negative effect.
Mhm.
Well, that's the long story, but also the short story of how we ended up with these ingredients that you just put into your drink, put into a glass. And really the key is we're treating the alcohol, not the body. And by that, we're basically giving your body, my body, your body, a chance to assimilate the ethanol and the alcohol and not have these instant heavy reactions, especially to the histamines, because we found that a lot of these trace toxins cause inflammation. The inflammation, I'm sure you guys know, is just, it wrecks. And I think a lot of us have chronic inflammation, but when you take a sip of an IPA or a red wine, as soon as that hits your gut, you're going into a histamine response, which is that inflammation, which causes, I don't know if you guys have ever had the throbbing headaches after you drink, because certain of the trace toxins are vasoconstricting, but then the tannin is a vas. So you've got this where you're just grabbing the back of your head after, and you're like, oh my gosh, why do I feel so bad? And then you start sweating, and then you're tired, but you have poor sleep, and then you wake up with that head. It's been a really fun journey, right? It's so much so that I just built ALKAA for me. That was it. It was just, I want to feel better when I drink. Started working on it. Friends and family are like, hey, what have you been up to? And I'm like, I'm trying to solve the hangovers. And they're like, oh my gosh, well, let me know when you figure something out. Met with quite a bit of skepticism, but it worked. And there's this, the science is, if you reduce the toxin load in anything, that's a good thing. It just come to find out there's a pretty heavy toxin load that's in every glass of alcohol. And the darker the alcohol, the whiskeys and the tequilas and the rums and the red wines, the heavier that load is. And if we can reduce that load, it just gives your body a fighting chance to just not be in so much angst when you drink.
And Paul, is it because, did you find it because of the length of fermentation? Is that why the heavier the load of those toxins, because it had more time to mature inside the alcohol? Is that what?
That's one key, Adam, for sure. So if you take a whiskey that's been, so a whiskey is distilled, but then it's put into an oak barrel for a certain amount of years.
Yeah, 12.
You've got the tannins from the oak, you've got the congeners and the acetaldehyde, and those just wreak havoc on you. But opposite of that, if you have let's just say a potato vodka that's very clean, right? You're going to have a really low trace toxin load in vodka and gin. So if I had to drink an alcohol without treating it with ALKAA, I would probably go potato vodka, right? Because there's no gluten, it's been distilled, it's really clean, it's clear, and it's going to have less of a toxin load. I'm pretty sensitive. My Scandinavian background, I treat everything just because vodka or gin will still give me a headache. But yeah, different alcohols really affect people differently. And that's because of the way it's either distilled or fermented. So beer and wine, if you were going to have a list and this is just 4 years of working in this and talking to people, red wine, number one problem. After that, it's going to be a dark whiskey, a dark tequila, or a craft beer. Those three, depending on your age, your physiology, those are the three that are really just pound people hard. And they're just loaded with these trace compounds.
These trace compounds that you found.
Yep.
Amazing. And these are real chemistry that really is in there, that naturally occurring.
Yeah. And we went to a lab and I was like, hey, can you guys test for this, and this? And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. There's known tests for this that we can do. And so I don't know if they could be done at a winery, but there are ways to reduce them. And lo and behold, it works.
I have one follow-up here. How much do you think on this, when it comes to all of the different type of drinks, from its original form, how much of it evolved to where it is now to its level of toxicity before when it was originally discovered or invented?
Yeah.
Do you think it had that level of toxicity as well, or that level of...
That's a great question. I think over time, that level of toxicity has probably reduced.
Oh, reduced.
Because there are more filters, there are more fining agents, there are more procedures put in place to not make people sick. But Adam, if you look back thousands of years to when ancient China, ancient Egypt, where they say the birthplace of alcohol, it was mead, honey, a beer, and then with wine, there are hundreds of books that mention the effects of alcohol. There's scriptures in the Bible, the Hebrew scriptures, Greek scriptures, the writers of antiquity the negative effects of alcohol have been plaguing mankind for thousands of years. And that's where I was like, who in the heck am I to, I don't want to say solve the problem, but I haven't had a hangover or woke up with general malaise in years. And so we just had to take out we just had to take out the natural components that were part of fermentation and making the alcohol. So I don't know. I think if you compared a wine or a beer from, let's just say 1,000 years ago to now, I would say that there'd be a lot more issues with the older way of doing things versus now.
That's fascinating. That's an interesting take. It's some of those drinks too were used to transcend your consciousness.
Yeah.
A long time ago. And it was used to take you to a different level of consciousness and awareness. And so your people who drinks it, that feeling that they're feeling the next day that you're saying hangover, the nirvana now is taken away by alcohol.
Yeah, that's a good, I never thought about that.
Now they're back to reality. All jokes aside, they don't feel this feeling of lightness.
But there's no headache now, so that's better. Man, it's kind of a weird spot to be in.
I think it's timely, Paul. And all jokes aside, in today's world where there's more sickness out that we're trying to prevent, and while we're trying to, I think the alcohol is always connected to celebration and food and culture and friendship and this feeling of belonging. And in today's world, you want to enjoy that. And so what you've done is you created a substance that allows you to enjoy it with lowering those risk of the effect. And Ray and I have talked about those. We did a chronic stress presentation this past week that sometimes people don't realize that when you have this, and you're talking about the chemicals, people don't realize, especially if you drink so much, the buildup of these toxins in your body. You don't have the ability to digest it or even dispose it. Your body, it becomes dormant in your body and it compounds and it creates so much stress that you don't realize. It's, why am I feeling this way? The fogginess. Why am I feeling less sharp? Why am I gaining weight? It's reality. It's a compounding effect of the things that you found. And so you're taking that away.
Yeah.
That it's very helpful.
Yeah. I never thought about it like that.
I'm curious, when you found ALKAA, now you're solving this for drinking for yourself. Before this journey, had you considered that aging itself might change your response to alcohol?
This is just looking back before I had any years before ALKAA. I just knew that as I was aging, because I'm 52, when I was it was like I was noticing a marked difference when I drank. And again, I'm just looking back 5, 8, 10 years and trying to remember. But I remember going over to a friend's house that had really good wine. And it was like you mentioned, it was going to be a very fun party. And we were going to start with sparkling wine, so champagne. And then we would have a glass of white wine, and then we'd have a glass of Cabernet, and then dinner, and then we'd end with some port. Like it was a flight, but it was a really good wine. And I remember taking charcoal pills, ibuprofen, and a product called Flyby before we got there, just to stave off the awful feeling, the headaches, the body aches, the age. I was just aging out. I don't know. I just was not feeling good. I knew I wasn't going to be feeling good. I was definitely going to leave with a headache, and I would wake up. I wouldn't sleep good. And the next morning, if it was a Sunday morning, it would just be a long morning. If it was a Monday morning, it would just be a long morning at work.
And Paul, let me ask you a follow-up here. What did the earliest experiment of prototype look like when you were developing the product?
It was very nerve-wracking.
You sent it to us. It's beautiful. I said, wow, looks really good. It's such a cool product. My wife said, what did you get? What did you buy again? I said, no, hold on. I didn't buy anything this time.
The first iteration was in these really fancy tea bags, like a muslin tea bag, just loaded with product that kind of changed the flavor of the wine, changed the look of it. It made it really cloudy. It was not that good, right? But it was starting to work. Like, and I was just a really good test subject because I was so sensitive to the alcohol that when I started having very little effect as I changed the recipe, I was like, man, I'm on to something because I feel great or I feel less awful, right? But when we finally got what I remember as a recipe, I was like, Sarah, we're gonna go out to dinner. We ordered a bottle of wine. It was a little Italian restaurant in Monticello, New York. Never forget it. I don't think we'd ever ordered a bottle of wine before at dinner, just the two of us, because wine would just destroy us. It was just, we didn't do that. Ordered a bottle of wine, used ALKAA, felt great, went home, slept great, woke up literally forgetting that we had anything to drink. And at that point, I was like, we did it. This is it. And it took refinement and quite a bit of fine tuning. But I think I've got a picture of Sarah holding up like one of the first batches of tea bags, or what we call sachets. It's a fancy word for a tea bag. One of the first sachets, and I'll never forget the feeling. That was really special because that was a lot of hard work and a lot of angst and stress and not feeling well by testing it on myself.
Was there a time that you felt the frustration of repeated failure that almost caused you to stop? Was there a time like that?
I don't know if it caused me to stop because as I felt small increments changing, it would really spur me to keep going. And at that point in my life, I'm like, I really want to solve this problem. Kind of like if we go back to the car issue, like your car's not starting, but maybe you hear a clicking now, or maybe something's happening to where you're like, oh, I think we're getting close, right? We're on the right track. And so, but again, at this point, Adam, it was just for me. I was not thinking of a business. I just wanted it for me. And so there was a massive hurry because at this point I was working at another job that I've been at for almost 25 years. So I was just taking my time and doing more research and ordering more products and doing more testing at the laboratory to really solidify in my mind that I'm feeling better because there is a reduction, that a third party laboratory is showing me that there's a reduction, which the testing was. If we didn't have the testing, there's no way I'd be selling a product just because I need to show a reduction. There's got to be an A and a B. And that's something I can do per glass. I can't, it's really hard to do on somebody's body because you're different than me. I'm different than Ray. Ray's different than Bob, right? You've got genes and nationality and weight and stress levels and hormones and age, all of these things that everybody has as their body. So again, the mechanic in me was like, well, let's reduce the load before you even take your first sip. To me, that just made sense.
You did the prevention rather than cure approach.
You know what? That's exactly what we did.
Because
I never really thought of that.
You're taking the prevention rather than cure, because most of the alcohol pitches are you take it so you can cure it, but you're taking the prevention first, and that's really what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. Yeah.
You talked about Sarah a lot. I'm curious, Sarah's strength in listening, it has probably given you a lot of how did Sarah's strength in listening push you to go just move this forward, Paul?
Boy, there was a day where I was like, this is working. We might have something here. Like we might be able to start a business. But what does that look like? And it wasn't right away that we were both like, yeah, do it. It took a while, but Sarah had been, man, so supportive, but she's also so stinking smart that if it wasn't for her, there's no way we'd be where we are now. Because I'm really good at figuring out how to fix things. She's really good at keeping us on target and keeping the manufacturing process like clean and organized, and the social media aspect. I'm good at customer service, right? And she's really good at high level. Like, we just make a really good team. And we get to work with each other now, which is just every day is not quite the best day ever, but pretty close. We wake up, we get to enjoy coffee together, we get to strategize for the day, and some days you're just not in the headspace for a lot of social media. I'm sure you guys have been there where it's just there's so much negative energy out there. Some days you're just not in the mood for it. Other days you're fine. Figuring out how to run a manufacturing business where we need to build trust with people, because we're asking somebody to trust us enough to buy a product and to put it in their drink and then to drink the drink. Right? You're not ingesting ALKAA. It doesn't leave anything in your drink. It's just like a magnet. It just attracts the toxins. So that's good. It's not a drug. It's not a medical device, and it doesn't leave anything in your drink. But it's a whole new category of drinking wellness, where we're saying to people, hey, if you don't feel good after you drink, this could be the problem. But how do you build trust, Adam, with that? Like, you start your camera on your phone and you start posting to Instagram. And then that's kind of what we're doing now, is we're just finishing up the foundation of manufacturing, which is a huge world of the tin that I sent you, right? Of ALKAA. That's a thing. You got to get the tins, you got to get the sachets, you got to get the products, you got to make it right. You got to have the lawyers, the attorneys, your business structure, your manufacturing, your people. Like, it's a thing before you can even really scale, because you need to be ready for it. So there's Sarah and I work really good together on, I'll be like down in the trenches, and she's up at the 30,000 foot level looking down and being like, I think we should do this, or I think you should do that. And I'll be like, I think this is going to work. And she's like, that's the most horrible idea I've ever heard. And I'll step back and look at it and be like, oh yeah, you're right. That's a horrible idea. It's not going to work. So we work really good together like that. It's been really fun. I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to building this company with her and turning ALKAA into a product that just makes people feel, it gives people the opportunity to just enjoy life a little bit more. And as we get older, our weekends are super precious. Like a Sunday morning, if you can enjoy a Sunday morning without even a low-grade headache from the night before, that's worth its weight in gold. And a lot of our customers, the reviews are really fun to read. Sometimes I need to do that. I just go read reviews and I'm like, okay, you've got a good product and it's working. But I think Sarah and I together are way stronger than we would be separate. And it's really helped us to build a smart little company that is just trying to build trust in a world where it's kind of tough to do. Yeah.
Love that. And that's beautiful that you can do that with a partner. Ray, I know you're brewing some questions here.
I'm really soaking it all in, Paul, what you're sharing. Your story is very inspiring. You came from being a diesel mechanic to creating, I love your word here, a drinking wellness product. Who would have thought? Maybe you would have never thought too, those many years ago. But my question is, so you found a new sense of purpose in life, or, maybe pre-ALKAA, what was your sense of purpose in life, or where did you feel like your life was going? And then how do you define your purpose now with, your goal initially was for yourself, but now you have a larger goal, a larger mission.
Yeah, ALKAA, again, I was working for a company, and it was a manufacturing company where we did a lot of safety and testing, manufacturing, and I was busy just making a living in corporate America, Monday through Friday, working hard, trade shows, traveling, doing your job, and that was it. And that's what I was going to do until I retired. But honestly, I was burnt out and stressed out and not feeling well. Now, Ray, and I don't want this to sound cliche, and I mean this 100%. I just want people to feel good. And by good, I just mean normal, not bad. after enjoying a beer or a glass of wine. And I've done it for so many years now that I get so passionate. Like I have to curb my enthusiasm and be like, you got to try it. You have to try this product. I can't do that. People are on their journey for health and to feel good. And I just want to be, I want to be a person or a product or a story that triggers somebody to be like, this might solve a pretty painful problem that I've had for a long time that I didn't even know there was a solution for. So part of my journey is to just help anybody who just doesn't feel good after they drink to have a solution, to try something that, again, it isn't messing with their body. We're just giving their body a chance to assimilate alcohol without feeling like garbage afterwards. And there's so many people that I talk to just don't feel good after they drink, and they use alcohol and they're like, wow. Sometimes it takes people a while to really come to a realization that their relationship with alcohol has changed because of ALKAA. And that's where I was too. A good friend of mine who's been using ALKAA for a while, that was his story. He was like, Paul, you've changed my relationship with alcohol. Where I would go somewhere and I would get kind of stressed out because if there's going to be wine at a work event or a wedding or a party, and I would drink, but I would know that at 7 a.m. I'm going to have a pounding headache. And he goes, I don't have that anymore. I don't have that stress of drinking. And that's really powerful because it's just been part of a lot of people's lives for so long. So if we can just help with that, I'm happy with that.
Well, I want to bring us to the healthier relationship with alcohol thought here. I'm curious because I think there's we all know there's a certain part of the alcoholic drink that can still cause some problem over time. Like what you said in the very beginning, when there's too much, it will cause you problems.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your perspective on a couple of things.
Sure.
I'm curious about how should a person, just from your own perspective, especially after the research, because you've done the research and you've known a lot of the compound, you've found a really great solution from a filtration perspective and the preventative side. How should a person over 55, because most of our listeners are either 55-year-old and sometimes they're caregivers, 55 years old, factor medication, sleep issues, health conditions into when they say I still want to drink alcohol, what's your typical with the relationship with alcohol, because you found a lot of this substance that has affected them and they still want to enjoy it, and part of life is enjoying life even at a certain age. So I'm curious,
that's a tricky one. My take is alcohol it's a neurotoxin, so probably not the best thing to be putting in your body. Same with, I would say, sugar is probably another one that if we cut out all alcohol and all sugar and even since we're talking about it, let's just say red meat. If you took alcohol, sugar, and red meat and just eliminated them, probably be a lot healthier and a lot happier, but these things are part of our lives. And so I think balance is key especially as we get older. I believe that maybe a glass of wine or a margarita or a dram of scotch may just be enough for you. No alcohol, just in general, as well as maybe a handful of chips or a small slice of cake, not the bag, not a row of cake. Same with maybe some bacon or a steak. So I think as I get older, I need to be balanced. And as we deal with maybe a chronic illness, we learn balance sometimes by force, or sometimes just because we know we don't feel good. So with that being said, I think if we can balance, and I think with alcohol really helps just because we're not eliminating. That's been the other thing that you can do is just stop drinking. But like you said, a lot of us don't want to. We want to enjoy moderation and not all the time. We don't drink every day, but when you do, let's just not have it ruin our evening or our next day. So I think balance is key. And then sometimes just knowing when you need to either stop something or start something. Like I need to stop eating so much sugar and I need to start walking 10 minutes a day. And again, I'm 52, not quite to the 55 yet, but I can feel that. And since we've moved to New York, just a quick side note, I came down with Lyme disease, like really bad. And then I also have alpha-gal syndrome, which is the red meat allergy where I get severely sick from even just smelling meat that's being cooked. I've learned a lot on the illness side from being chronically ill for 2 years. Yeah, crazy.
Lyme disease is so common, it's rising in the East Coast right now. It's the deer population that carries it is very rampant.
Yeah.
And by the way, on the side, going back to the reason why I ask you that, because as I'm reflecting on this conversation, there's a huge responsibility for us, for you, comes with building a product. I'm assuming you feel the same way, that connects to alcohol and wellness. And as we're talking about this, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, we're not telling people drink more. That's why we're
exactly.
talking.
Yeah.
And I don't want any listeners to misunderstand why we're talking about this conversation. And I want them to hear a perspective about the feeling, the responsibility that you feel while you're developing this product. Because some other people, there's going to be listeners out there who's going to say, you're endorsing to drink more. That's why you're creating a product like this. Well, you can say the same thing when you're baking more cake, you're pushing towards the same thing. I mean,
no, exactly.
There's that perspective.
Yep.
And so I wanted the listeners to hear your perspective. I'm curious about that feeling of that responsibility that you have internally. What's drive push this?
I think part of that, Adam, is that we filter so much of our life. We filter our water, we filter our air, we filter everything that we drink has been filtered and fined. There's filters. We filter our content, right, on social media. We just haven't been filtering to a degree our alcohol and the toxins therein that are really known to cause issues. And I think that's all it is. I'm not going to stop filtering my water because I don't like the taste of sulfur or chlorine. I don't like it. So I'm going to filter it. I'm going to replace the house filter for the air because I think that it's smart to breathe cleaner air. Really, we've taken a product that's been manufactured for 6,000 years and it hasn't really changed. If anything, it's gotten better and probably cleaner. But again, you look back hundreds, thousands of years in writings and people are like, wow, yeah, drink too much red wine, you're going to get a raging headache. And that is because there's just these compounds we've got to filter out. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry. I might have got off a little bit on that one.
It does. And I'm geeking out on this conversation because it's chemistry and history. So I'm going on tangents too.
And really quick, on our website, for any listeners, we hired a microbiologist to write us a study. Basically, we look at the 7 compounds that we reduce and their effect on the human physiology. We have, I think it's 95 reference studies. A lot of those reference studies that I use to learn about what I'm doing, it's on the website. And it's 19 pages long. It's not a sales piece. It's just hey, here's what a histamine is. And here's what it does to the body. Here's what a tannin is, and here's what it does to the body. And then we've got references for everything. It's amazing because you can really geek out. And then we've got some testing data in there about the reduction. What does ALKAA do? What's in it and what does it do? And you can just see on a graph of, oh, wow, it takes the histamines out of wine. And if you look at what the histamine is, you look over and you're like, oh, histamine's responsible for these 12 things that I felt when I have a glass of wine. So it's really the sciencey part of it and the chemistry part of it. That's what ALKAA is. It's a filter that uses a base ion exchange to capture these trace compounds and feel better. Yeah.
I was gonna ask if you don't mind doing for our listeners, and if you can describe how is ALKAA used from the very beginning. If you have 5 minutes of describing it from from the physical aspect and what happens in a compound aspect, Can you explain that in 5 minutes?
I think so. So the ingredients in ALKAA, what we've got charcoal, activated charcoal. And if you look at the microporous aspects of charcoal, it's been used for in humans for, I'll just say hundreds of years, even though you can take charcoal, you can buy charcoal, you can take it when you're poisoned or even to capture toxins. So we use charcoal. The surface area of charcoal is absolutely insane. So if you have just a teaspoon of charcoal, that's equivalent to about, you can't quote me for sure, but it's 2 tennis courts size of surface area and just a teaspoon of charcoal. It's incredible. So we use activated charcoal. We use a zeolite, clinoptilolite zeolite, which is a volcanic rock. We use a marine grade chitosan, which is a polysaccharide for fining. So if you have wine, beer, pretty much any type of liquid, it's going to be fined or filtered with chitosan. And then we use an ion exchange media, which has been around since the 40s or 50s. If you have a refrigerator with like an inline filter, you'll have ion exchange media in there. So these 4 items alone, they're okay. You can buy charcoal and take charcoal. You can buy zeolite and take zeolite. You can buy chitosan. You can go to Amazon and buy these in powder form. Ion exchange resin, not so much, but if you're a municipality or a filter manufacturer, together they have a party in the sachet. It's like a sachet soiree. It's insane. Together, some are negative charged, some are positive charged, and inside the sachet, when the alcohol flows through the sachet and across the media, this is a van der Waals principle of attraction and exchange, flows over the media. It's capturing your histamines, your sulfites, your tannins, your tyramines, your quercetin, your phenethylamine in exchange, right? And once it does that, they stay there and you're just left with all the alcohol, the taste, the flavor. Sometimes if you leave it in for more than 5 minutes in red wine, it will really smooth the wine out. You won't feel that if you have a really bitey red wine and you're like, oh man, it's got that bite feeling. ALKAA will smooth that out a little bit after 5 minutes. But you've got these constituents, and this is in the patent. We got a US patent on that because together these ingredients, they do so well to capture these toxins. And then you literally just lift that sachet out and you're left with, again, a filtered drink that is a new ritual because it takes 5 minutes for ALKAA to work and it takes flow. It needs 5 minutes and it needs to be gently moved. And that's part of our new ritual is that when let's just say you go to the bar and you order a martini, instead of just getting a martini and starting right away, you're forced to just chill. You take out your sachet, put it in, you set your timer for 5 minutes, enjoy the time with your friends, check the news feed, whatever, but you have to wait that 5 minutes. And then when you do, then you're a little bit more mindful about how much you've had to drink and you're forcing yourself to just slow down a little bit. It really is a mindful drinking and that changes your relationship with alcohol in a good way because you're filtering. And then when you take a couple sips, you don't have any reactions. You can go home. You can enjoy a date night, right? Because there's no headaches. You're going to sleep well. You're going to wake up. I ride bikes a lot in the morning, like cycle, and I'm up at 5 and we hit the road and it's pain. It's suffering. You would just suffer on the bike. And if I didn't have ALKAA, I couldn't do it as much as I do now because I forget that I drank because I feel so good. I don't have that negative effect. The ingredients they're amazing. They capture like a magnet, not like a sponge. Think of ALKAA isn't a sponge. ALKAA is like putting a magnet into a bucket of nails. You scrape the nails off the magnet, but where the sponge you squeeze, right? And then the water or whatever goes out of the sponge. So technically, from a science standpoint, ALKAA adsorbs these trace toxins. It does not absorb. The difference is the ABS, absorb. A sponge absorbs. a magnet would adsorb, just sticks to the outside. It's a very elegant process that takes time. I thought people were really going to hate the 5 minutes. I kind of hated waiting the 5 minutes. Oh man, I just want to drink my drink. But waiting is okay. And when you just kind of have to sit there and be patient and have that anticipation, and then you don't have the pain associated with it. Oh, Adam, it just changes that whole enjoyment and reduces your stress level, because now you can go to a wedding, enjoy a glass of wine or a beer. You can go out with your friends. You can have a glass of wine on the airplane and not land with a raging headache. I don't know. It's a new way of drinking and a new way of being patient and just kind of, you just have to try it and then see how you feel. It's wonderful.
I have one follow-up, and I'm going to take you to what we call a rapid fire question, Paul.
Okay.
We have that rapid fire portion of our podcast. I'm curious, the follow-up question I have is, where do you want ALKAA and the evidence of the company to be 3 years from now? Where do you envision the company 3 years from now?
I envision ALKAA on some menus. Go to a restaurant and you get the wine menu, and there's a little QR code and a little blurb about, would you like an ALKAA with your drink? And I would love for people to be like, yes, I would like an ALKAA, and have it be, is that a verb? I like ALKAA to be a verb, kind of like an Uber 10 years ago was not a thing. Same with an Airbnb. But 2 years from now, it would be really fun for ALKAA to be I'll go to an airport bar and the bartender says, hey, would you like an ALKAA with that? Then I'll be like, okay. I know that's a lot to ask, but that's what kind of drives me.
And that will be something that we will all remember. I'm sure Ray and I would, oh my goodness. I remember when Paul mentioned that. It's not that far to do that, Paul.
Yeah, we can say we were present when Paul had the idea those couple of years ago, and we were part of the journey, which is great.
Correct. Yeah, I think there's a lot of it's not that far, Paul. I guarantee you. There's all you need is the right brand to see it, the right restaurants, the right place to see it. And you're in New York. I think that's the other thing. It's the right place to see it. Yes, New York, LA, Miami. I think it's the right place to get there.
Yep.
I want to take you to a rapid fire question.
Okay.
We do in this segment, we ask you a question. You can answer it with one word. You can answer it with a sentence. You could answer it whatever you want. But it's a rapid. Okay. The first question I have is a complete the sentence. Complete the sentence. Aging is blank.
Oh, aging is awesome. I love getting older. Yeah, I'm a lot wiser, smarter. Yeah, I feel like I'm finally starting to get things figured out.
What is one change in the body people should not ignore?
Inflammation. Don't ignore inflammation.
What is one thing people might misunderstand about alcohol after 55?
It's not you getting older that's making you feel worse when you drink. It's not your fault. It's the alcohol's fault.
It's very powerful. What is one word that describes what invention really feels like?
Satisfying and lucky. I know that's 2 words, but then really satisfying.
What is the most important lesson failure taught you?
If you are not failing, you're not really learning anything. Failure teaches resilience, and resilience just teaches you to gotta push on. And that's tough to do. But man, failure is so important. I think any founder is gonna say that they failed numerous times. But that's what makes you smarter.
It's the best lesson Sarah has taught you about partnership.
Slow down and listen. Listen to your customers, listen to your gut, listen to your business partner, AKA your wife.
Wise advice for a lot of us. What is one habit that makes drinking more intentional?
What is one habit? I think the habit of being Adam, that's a good one. You have to be balanced and moderate. You have to be balanced, and moderate. That's the habit. If your habit is balance and moderation, you're golden.
I have 3 more.
Okay.
What is one boundary every ALKAA customer should remember?
Moderation. I think everybody knows where their limit is. Everybody knows. You cannot go past your limit. That's the best. Yeah, and it's different for everybody, but I think everybody knows where that is. Do you know where yours is? Okay. Ray? Yeah. Same. Sarah's is probably the same. I think everybody knows and staying within that limit that's key.
Last two. What study do you most want to see conducted next?
Oh, clinical double-blind placebo-controlled clinical study. So excited, nervous. We've done the laboratory. It's great because that's third party, certified, verified. That's just constituents in a glass, Adam. I want people on a study that is the industry peer-reviewed, double-blind, right? The whole nobody's done that in our arena ever, and I want to be the first.
And that's exciting. If you can.
Yeah, if we can get there.
I think you will. One last. What does living better, longer means to you?
Oh, more time with my friends and family, or even just more time with friends and family. Hands down, time. Oh man, it goes by so quick. And having wasted days from something like food or alcohol that can ruin days. Oh, it just more time. That's the best.
Ray, take us away. I know you have some announcements here.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. I think your last message of time is really important. Life is so short, and I truly believe in living in the moment. So if we can all be in the moment and live a little out of here, a little more pleasant, and if that's from a little sachet in our one alcohol drink, that gives us a nice moment to appreciate. It's been a pleasure to listen into your story, and the podcast is one of my favorite projects to be part of on PrimeSpan. And we get to meet incredible people like you who have missions that are aligned with what we're doing. You just want to help people.
I love talking and telling the story and answering questions. And it's always, the podcast is definitely one of the best parts of the business. I get to meet so many awesome people.
Thank you. So I'll share a little bit about how our PrimeSpan listeners can stay connected with us, and then maybe you can share about how listeners can get connected with ALKAA. So thank you everyone for listening in on this episode. If you've enjoyed this conversation and want to stay connected, please follow us on all social media platforms at primespan.life and see what we're building next, and join us on our PrimeSpan community Facebook group. And we also encourage you to listen in on our previous guest episodes so you can capture more wisdom, insights into wellness, prevention, and living well, just like Paul shared today. If you're ready to see how PrimeSpan can fit in your life, it's really easy to get started with us. We have several options that are affordable memberships or one-time fees to try it out. But mostly I want to encourage people to try out our PrimeSpan Build coaching, which adds a dedicated longevity coach to help tailor your movement, nutrition, and habits into very specific goals. Regardless of how you want to stay connected with us, you can cancel anytime. You're not just getting a subscription if you're joining us, you're getting a system designed for adults 55 plus that stops all of that advice you're getting in and puts it into one place that's easy to get advice and have someone as your accountability partner. Please stay connected with us. Also we're having monthly masterclass webinars. We just hosted one this past weekend, and we'd love to have you on the next one. It's going to be towards the end of August. So follow us on social media or sign up for a newsletter, and we'll be able to share all of that information with you. But Paul, can you share with our listeners how they can learn more about ALKAA and get connected with you?
Sure. We've got our website, which has all the information, .alkaa, ALKAA.com. And there you can learn about the product, the toxins, the people. And if you have any questions, our phone number and our email is on there too. You can reach out to myself or Sarah, and we'll get back to you and answer any questions that you have.
Paul, again, thank you for sharing the human story behind the invention and for being willing to discuss the evidence, the responsibility that comes with it. You've been so generous with all of this. We enjoyed having you here at PrimeSpan Podcast. We hope to have you again in a different.
That would be awesome. There's so much more to talk about.
And hopefully we get to meet Sarah too. That's the other thing.
That would be really fun. There's so many things to talk about. It's a huge subject.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Thank you for spending time with us. If today's conversation gave you clarity or steadiness, take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.